There's two ways of improving teacher quality. One is to replace the existing teachers with better ones, the approach that Ronald Reagan tried with the air traffic controllers in the 1980s. Fire them all and start again with better ones. Won't work. There aren't any better teachers out there. Sorry. Or improve the effectiveness of existing teachers. Now that sounds like a good idea, except that it's quite hard to do because we don't know what makes teachers good. We know that teachers make a difference from the research I've quoted earlier, but we don't know what makes the difference in teachers. We know it's not advanced content matter knowledge, which is nice. I don't think that's a surprise, is it really? I mean, does making sure that every elementary school teacher knows calculus make them likely to be a better teacher of third grade math? Probably not. That's not very surprising. What's more surprising is the pedagogical content knowledge. Is it important for third grade math teachers to know third grade math really deeply? You would assume it would, and in fact, if you are taught by a more knowledgeable teacher, you will learn more, but not that much more. If you were taught by a teacher with above average knowledge of what Deborah Ball's team at the University of Michigan call mathematical knowledge for teaching, if you're taught by a more knowledgeable teacher, you will learn more, about an extra 2 weeks more per year. That's more learning, but not much. And if you have a master's degree in education or a qualification for the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, the evidence so far is maybe an extra 5% student progress. So the difficult thing is that we know that teachers make a difference, but we can only account for about 20 to 25% of it. In a brilliant article in the New Yorker, Malcolm Gladwell compared this to finding quarterbacks for the NFL, a very timely feature since we are just currently in the drafting process for the NFL. And apparently, how well these guys played in college predicts very well how well they'll play in the pros at every position except quarterback. Some people think it's due to the fact that most colleges use the spread offense, and you just can't use that in the pros because those defensive backs are just too big and too fast. If there's any gaps there, they'll get through it. So there's been a search for how to work out, on the basis of their college performance, which quarterbacks are going to be any good in the NFL. And their big idea? IQ testing. Seriously, every quarterback who's in the draft has to take the Wonderlic test. And it's extraordinary. It has no predictive power at all. Bottom scorers on the Wonderlic include Terry Bradshaw, Dan Marino, and Donovan McNabb. Some of the best quarterbacks of all time. And those who come up with these great scores, these people, they've got the brilliant ability to read the field, yes, but they're not very good at quarterbacks. And in fact, one of the problems is you can get selected for a teacher training program without ever anybody finding out whether you actually like children very much. As you heard, I used to be assistant principal at King's College London, and we had the largest medical school in Europe. And we used to train about 400 doctors every year. And we had a program of 3-year preclinical, year 4 out into clinical practice. And we'd find these students coming back and saying, I don't think I want to be a doctor. And I said, why not? Well, it involves spending a lot of time with sick people. Yes, did you not think that might be a kind of core feature of the job somehow? Why do you choose? Well, I wanted to get into medicine because it was tough to get into. So we started actually putting clinical experience in year 1. So that they could actually discover whether do you really want to spend the next 40 years of your life being with sick people? And in the same way, I think we ought to find out whether people who actually want to be teachers really like children very much. So we don't know what makes these people good. But let's say we could raise the bar for entry into teaching, as recommended by some of these hardline economists. The problem is, if we raise the bar so that you had to have higher skills or whatever to get into teaching, for 30 years, there's still going to be teachers teaching who got in under the bar. So the effect is going to take 30 years to materialize, and my estimate is that you get one extra student passing a test per class in 30 years. We can't afford to wait that long in the US. So we have to help you do a better job in your own classrooms. What I call the love the one you're with strategy. Now, I've taken half an hour to get to this point. Professional development is a good idea. But I hope that you think the time has been well spent, because here's what I've been really arguing is this. Professional development is not a nice thing to have for teachers to keep up to date with new ideas. There hasn't been anything new in teaching for at least 2,000 years, as far as I'm concerned. The reason you need professional development is because every single one of you experience failure on a daily basis. You show me a teacher who's not failing on a daily basis, and I will show you a teacher with very low expectations of her students. Our daily experience is failure. We teach these wonderful lessons, we take in the kids' notebooks, we look at what they wrote, and we wonder what planet they were on when we were teaching, don't we? And that's the great thing about teaching. You never get any good at it. For good teachers, no amount of success is enough. My kids used to say to me, "Sir, you're never satisfied." Precisely. No amount of success is enough. And ultimately, it becomes a mental health issue for teachers. You better pray that you believe that you're failing on a daily basis, because if you don't believe you're failing, you're not paying attention. But more importantly, it becomes a mental health issue for you, because if you don't think you can do a better job tomorrow than you did today, then you'll end up blaming the kids. What can you expect from these kids? Words that, when spoken by a professional, ought, in my view, to lead to instant dismissal. Because anybody with that attitude isn't getting as much out of their kids as somebody, like I hope most of you in this room, who has unreasonable optimism about what you can actually achieve with your kids. And we are so optimistic. We want every kid to get this stuff. We really believe, I mean, we're wrong all the time, but we are hopelessly optimistic. And it's what makes teaching the best job in the world, because you never get any good at it. At one time, Andre Previn was the highest paid film score composer in Hollywood. And one day he walked into his office and he quit. And somebody said to him, "Why do you quit this amazing job?" He said, "I wasn't scared anymore." Every day he was going into his office and he was doing his job. His job held no more challenges for him. This is something you are never going to have to worry about. This job is so difficult that one lifetime is not enough to master it. So you need to carry on getting better as a teacher until you retire or die. That's the deal. And that's why this guy Pareto is so important. Because I hope you agree that you need to improve, not because you're not good enough, but because you could be even better. But the important point is then, what do you work on getting better at? And that's what's very hard, because this guy pointed out that if you've got a taxation system, you should really make sure you're spending the money you've got properly before you raise any more taxes. So his idea was that a Pareto improvement is a change in the way you're doing things that can make at least one person better off without making anybody else worse off. So the question is, are your schools Pareto optimal? Are there things you can do to make your schools better without more money? I mean, anybody can improve things by throwing money at the problem. But can you make your schools better without spending money?